What's happening? Brian Tong here with the Apple Bits for everything good and bad inside the world of Apple. This is going to be all of the new things Apple didn't tell us until after the WWDC 2019 keynote. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry, correction. Dub. But before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Audible. Start listening with a free 30-day Audible trial and find your first audiobook plus 2 Audible originals are free. Visit audible.com/ABXL or text ABXL to 500. All right, Apple had so many announcements packed in this keynote, but let's start off with iOS 13. There's a lot more worth getting excited about that Apple didn't talk about at the keynote. And first up, I know I got my gamers out there. We saw Apple announce compatibility with Xbox's One S controller and Sony's DualShock controller for the PS4 during the tvOS part of the keynote. But it wasn't just specific to tvOS. These controllers will work on iOS 13 and iPad OS as well. And this is where it gets really interesting because right now you can download the Remote Play app that allows you to connect your iPhone or iPad to your PS4 and stream and play most games from the PS4 over your home Wi-Fi network on an iOS device. The touchscreen controls, they just don't cut it, trust me. And there isn't full support for all M5 controllers, but now in iOS 13, you can play with the controller you've always had. You'll also be able to use the iPhone or iPad's microphone for in-game voice chat on iOS 13. So you're gonna start truly be able to have a mobile PS4 where you live. We also know Microsoft is working on a mobile streaming app of their own with Project xCloud that will probably come to iOS, and we know Google's Stadia is coming soon too. So think about this, gaming with Apple is really gonna start transforming itself over the next few years. And everyone was asking about a new volume indicator, and we've now seen it on the first beta. It pops up as a larger bar on the side or the top and then minimizes into a smaller line. It's definitely better and less intrusive, but the placement looks a little awkward at times, and I'm pretty sure the final result will be different, but Apple's changing it in iOS 13. And right now, if you ask Siri to play, let's say, Coming In Hot on Spotify, it can't. But in a move that makes you say, hey, it's about time, Apple is finally opening up its Siri Kit framework to third-party music, podcasts, audiobooks, and radio apps for iOS 13 and iPad OS, which will now allow Siri to control audio playback. You know, Apple keeps on showing us they're finally open to plain nice. They first did it with TVs at CES. We didn't expect that to happen because they've been falling behind with this whole walled garden approach that used to work back in the day, but not so much anymore. So now it's up to developers to enable it in their apps, but apps like Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, and Google Music and more could finally be coming with Siri support and also potentially bring more services to the HomePod, which it needs. Now, sign in with Apple. That got the loudest cheers at the keynote since it uses your Apple ID to sign in and then gives you the easy convenience without giving up all your info. Normally, we just use our Facebook or Google credentials because we're lazy. I know you are. We've all done it. And then all of a sudden, these sites and services know way more about us than we even know about ourselves. The new App Store guidelines now reveal that sign-in with Apple is going to be mandatory and featured for all apps that offer up third-party sign-in options. That means any apps with a Google or Facebook sign-in option will be required to include Apple sign-in moving forward. Developers won't be required to offer this sign-in with Apple option if their app logins only ask for a username and password just specific to the app. But I already know this is something I'm going to use every time I get the option to, and a big part of their privacy push from Apple that is now winning over a lot of people. All right, Apple announced the Find My app is coming to iOS, iPad OS, and macOS, and yup, they're going with the name Find My. Find My? Apple gave a breakdown of how Find My is designed to locate your lost devices, even if they're not connected to Wi-Fi or a cellular connection or even your own devices. Instead, it will find your lost items by connection to any nearby Apple devices via Bluetooth over an encrypted system that not even Apple can intercept. So let's just say you lose your phone at a lounge at night and it will broadcast its location with an encrypted public key via Bluetooth to other nearby Apple devices owned by complete strangers. All Apple devices will basically be able to see each other behind this encrypted system. So if Aaron from Missouri's phone, hi Aaron, is nearby your lost phone, it sees it and it will relay that signal with its encrypted location and an identifier that it's your phone to Apple servers up in the cloud. So then you and only you with your Apple devices that are linked to your account we'll be able to see its location. And this sounds intricate, but it also sounds really sweet. Now, we didn't see any physical tile-like tracker from Apple that was rumored, but developers Steve Moser and Guillaume Rambo have found references to Apple's physical item tracker in iOS 13's code with an asset package for a device labeled tag11. Then another asset inside of iOS 13 shows us what their Find My tag will probably look like. It's codenamed B389. It's not clear when it will be released, but the strong possibility is September alongside the new iPhone. And if we're talking phones, AR continues to be a part of Apple's story. They revealed ARKit 3 at the keynote. It does some amazing stuff, and they keep really advancing the tech with the iPhone, but it's really destined for their future augmented reality glasses. Now, during a developer session at WWDC on the new ARKit, Apple said it will only be supported on the newest phones and iPads powered by an A12 Bionic processor or higher. So as of this moment, that includes the iPhone XS, XS Max, XR, and only the 11-inch and 12.9-inch iPad Pros. So for a developer and customers, if you want to get in on this, your hardware can only be about a 1 year old or less. And since we're talking about some features you won't be able to use on iPhones, you've heard all the rumors about how Apple is planning on killing 3D Touch. They didn't mention it at all in the keynote, and it hasn't really made an appearance in any keynotes for at least over a year. Apple has never said 3D Touch is dead, and they probably never will, but in iOS 13 and iPadOS, Apple confirmed the quick actions menu that float over an app's icon on the home screen, and the ability to peek at previews of emails, links, messages, and more can now be done by pressing and holding your finger on the screen without the need for added pressure. It's what debuted as haptic touch on the iPhone XR. 3D Touch or the long press can still be used on phones that have 3D Touch, which leads us to believe that all new 2019 iPhones will most likely do away with 3D Touch for the long press haptic touch method. I use 3D Touch, not everyone does, but I do, so I've already prepared myself for this mentally and emotionally. And it's not just iOS 13 that we learned some new things about. We also found out more about the new Mac Pro. You know, I will not call it a cheese grater. I will not call it a cheese grater. Axios reports Apple marketing chief Phil Schiller told a group of select reporters that during the process of designing the Mac Pro, it changed some, and then that made it take longer than anticipated to get the final design. The circular cutout pattern for ventilation is made by machining out spheres from the solid aluminum chassis, and the design has been floating around Apple's labs long before the Mac Pro even came to be. Now, the rack-mounted version of the Mac Pro with a different chassis designed for data centers will be available later this fall. On the Mac Power Users podcast, Apple product manager Doug Brooks talked about how they wanted to design the Mac Pro for the future, knowing that, yes, not everyone is working with an 8K video workflow today, but the system is ready to handle that on day one and therefore have a longer lifespan. The low impedance airflow system they talked about measures in at around 10 decibels, making it quieter than an iMac Pro or the current Mac Pro sitting on a desk, so that's super quiet. Then the price of the wheels add-on still hasn't been revealed, but they tested them using G sensors to make sure the new Mac Pro could handle being wheeled around and withstand the normal bumps and vibrations from moving it around like that. During its testing, it was kept in a stealth enclosure. We know Apple has done this a lot in the past, so that its design remained a secret even to many people internally. Now, the Mac Pro design was a complete surprise when it was unveiled, which is really rare these days, and it definitely was a surprise to us, but you know, I still dig it. Now, a lot of people have talking about how much could a maxed out Mac Pro potentially cost. Well, The Verge decided to do a breakdown of the rough estimates for key elements of the Mac Pro. 12 sticks of DDR EEC RAM that total 1.5 terabytes would cost around $18,000. 4 terabytes of solid state storage, using the rough estimate of what it costs for an iMac Pro right now, is around $2,400. The actual 28-core processor has not been officially announced, but the Intel Xeon W327M is the closest option, running at 2.5 gigahertz with 28 cores, and that costs around $8,000. For the twin GPUs, they used NVIDIA's Quadro RTX as a reference, and 2 AMD Radeon Pro Vega 2 GPUs could cost around $12,000, but even more inside if Apple's MPX module bumps that even higher. We don't know the price for Apple's Afterburner Accelerator add-on, so we'll scratch that. And let's max out the Pro Display XDR with a matte nano texture and that $1,000 stand for $7,000. But this comment from my recap video by Citacel put it best. Talk about grandstanding. So let's just add it all up, and the setup alone could run anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000. hey, this machine is for the pros pro. And you might not have used it for years, but macOS Catalina will completely get rid of the macOS dashboard and all those fun little widgets that used to be a thing. I loved it back in the day, but now I don't even remember the last time I used it. And we know iTunes is completely going away in macOS, and you'll just connect your iPhone to your computer and manage it in the Finder moving forward. But PC users, don't worry. Apple confirmed to Ars Technica that there will be no changes if you're on a Windows machine, and you can continue to use it like normal. There was no word what will happen when the standalone music, TV, and podcast apps get new features over time, and what that means for the Windows version of iTunes. All right, there's everything we know right now that Apple revealed after the WWDC keynote. If you like this video, you know the drill. Thumbs up, subs up, and hit that notification bell to get the latest videos from me when they drop. And thanks again to Audible for sponsoring this episode. Listening, it makes us smarter and more connected to people. It makes us better people, and there's no better place to start listening than Audible. Audible is where so many inspiring voices and compelling stories open listeners up to new experiences and ways of thinking. Members now get more than ever before. Members choose 3 titles every month, 1 audiobook, plus 2 Audible originals that you can't hear anywhere else. The audiobook I recently checked out is called Raise Your Game by Alan Stein Jr. that dives into how to improve your productivity, create good habits, and a mindset to achieve even higher levels of success, which is exactly what I'm striving for, and it's an audiobook I think that really anyone could benefit from. So all you have to do is get the free app. Members can access Audible anytime, at the gym, commuting, on the go, and on any device. It always picks up right where you left off. Start listening with a free 30-day Audible trial and find your first audiobook plus 2 Audible originals are free. Visit audible.com/ABXL or text ABXL to 500-500. That's audible.com/ABXL or text ABXL to 500-500. All right, that's going to do it for now. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.